All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Between a Pot and a Hard Place. I'm Stephen Colton.
And I'm Chris Kirkpatrick.
And yeah, so we were going to talk about a few things tonight, I guess.
I'm excited about tonight.
Because it's going to be kind of packed, I guess. At first, it was going to be just Cobra Kai. And then, well, originally it was going to be Crisis a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then Cobra Kai. And then, and I know this isn't really necessarily an Arrowverse t-shirt, but it's when Stephen and Mel did a little bit of professional wrestling.
Okay.
And they had there was like a faction and I forget which organization it was, but they were called like the Bullet Club. And then after that, everybody came up with their own club. And so Stephen and Mel came out wearing this shirt, the Vigilante Club. And Obviously it's an Arrow reference. I found it at a Spencer's, I think it was. And I had to get it. I'm like, this is the one and only like superhero type shirt. I had a Superman shirt and other shirts, but I don't know. Felt like wearing this because I know we're talking about Crisis and Arrow's involved with that. And
I've got an entire closet full of superhero shirts, so I need to break those out.
I used to have a lot more, but I don't know what happened to them all these years. So I don't know.
Did you watch when Amel was in the ring fighting, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's been a while since I've watched it, but I think he had a few matches and he did a couple of things for a couple of different companies, I believe. I know the first time I saw it, he kind of was there as an audience member, as a fan. They're like, "Oh, look, it's Stephen Amell. The Arrow is here tonight," and then he kind of like jumps in and gets in a little scuffle with one of them, and it's like, "Oh wow, he wasn't supposed to do that." And then it sets up a tag team kind of thing. And then later on, he did a couple more for another company. I mean, it was really cool. And I think that's what really got him. I think he's always been a wrestling fan. And I think maybe that whole experience pushed him more into the show he's developing now, Heels, which is like a drama about professional wrestling, but I guess they're bad guys, like the main cast. I don't really know much else about it. I know they're filming it or have been filming it. And yeah, I don't know. I forget where it's going to come out. I think it might be Showtime or Stars, maybe. It's one of those premium movie channel shows. But yeah, I've been watching a lot of HBO Max because I bought a video game and it had a free code for a 30-day trial for HBO Max. So I was like, all right.
I don't know why everybody seems to be doing HBO Max, because I've been doing exactly the same thing with Titans.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been watching that, and I think it's just because we watched Wonder Woman 1984 on HBO Max, and I didn't realize that we had access to Titans, which I'm loving, by the way. So.
And they have, I mean, I know it's kind of irrelevant now since it's on CW, but the first season of Stargirl is on HBO Max still. There's a lot on there that I never thought was going to be on there. Like, if you remember, I think it was mid-90s, maybe later 90s, the movie Richie Rich with Macaulay Culkin.
Right.
That movie, I saw it as a kid. I'd seen it several times since, but I haven't watched it in years, and I've always wanted to watch it again, and I can't find it anywhere. I could probably order a DVD online, but I like going in and physically picking it up and having it like, it's right here, and going home. But anyway, I get on HBO Max and there it is. I'm like, okay, awesome. I watched it. And a lot of that movie was filmed here in my town. Okay. Yeah, his house, the big mansion, and where the little fountain is, and they're playing baseball on the huge lawn. That's all like probably 10 minutes down the road from here.
Okay.
That's like the big, it's called the Biltmore Estate. It's like the, God, what were their names? George Vanderbilt in like the 1800s. He was this big rich dude. He came here, bought all this land. And back then it was like 25 cents an acre. But anyway, that house is still there. It's still like the huge tourist attraction. It used to be the largest private home in America. And now I think it's like the second or third largest. Still, it's pretty impressive. But yeah, and they sell the Richie Rich DVD in the gift shop, obviously. Way overpriced, but I'm kind of getting, it's like $20 or something like that. And this movie was like 1996 or 7 or whatever it was. And I bring that up because, it's kind of, it's local, but there's a kid in that movie, and I still haven't looked it up to see if it's the same kid. But in Spider-Man: Homecoming and in Far From Home, Peter Parker's friend Ned, the kind of chubby Asian guy,
Right.
I think that kid is in Richie Rich, but I don't know if it's the same guy because he looks identical. I don't know if you remember that movie that much, but I know it's the friend he made. You know, there was a group of kids playing baseball, and they were like, "Oh,
Right.
you're rich, get away from us." And then when he invites them to the house, the kid's like, "Oh my God, dude, you have your own McDonald's?" And I think that's the same kid, but because that movie was like mid to late 90s, and I don't know how old that guy is now, but it looks like the same kid. Like he didn't age, he's just smaller.
Right. I mean, it's possible, but if it's
yeah.
mid to late 90s, you have to be in his, what, 20s, 30s?
I would say, yeah. I mean, depending on how old he was in the movie, I think Macaulay Culkin at that point his character was 12 years old. So I don't know real life. He couldn't have been more than 13 or 14 years old.
Right.
And so, gosh, that movie would be 23 or 4 years old, something like that. So the guy might be in his early 30s by now. But then again, you know, Tobey Maguire played a teenager and he was like 62. So,
right.
you know, who knows? But yeah, I didn't really know where.
The characters on Glee, for example, right? They were, you know, late 20s, 30s, playing teenagers. So it happens.
Yeah. I didn't really know where to jump in, but I just started talking about that.
Yeah. Let's just jump in right now. I think the big thing that I was excited about talking about tonight was Cobra Kai. That's probably
I've been waiting for that. And for anybody watching or that might be watching this later down the road on a replay, this will be pretty filled with spoilers. Like, you know, we can't really skate around
very it. Spoilery.
Yeah. Everyone dies at the end. There's an atom bomb. It blows up. Everybody dies. Sad. No. But no, I mean, I'm sure we're going to really, really spoil it because I'm excited. I really want season 4 yesterday.
Right.
Especially, I think the ending for season 3 was, I don't want to say it's better than the ending for season 2 because we all know what happened there. I mean, everyone pretty much got into this crazy situation. I was expecting season 2 to end on a tournament, much like the first movie tournament was at the end, but Karate Kid 2, it was like there was no tournament. He was in Japan, and then 3 came around, then he did the tournament again. So I'm thinking maybe season 4 they go back to the tournament because they talked about it in season 3, but then you think they're going to end there, but they don't. Of course, I knew Miguel wouldn't be dead because I did hear somewhere though that.
Well, but they really. Yeah, I mean, they really did play up this idea that Miguel Diaz was going to die.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, it seemed.
I mean, up until that very moment, even when he's like lying there, just about coding on the table, just before he wakes up, you know, they want to make us believe that he's not going to make it.
Yeah, and that was really my first. I don't want to say beef or complaint, but like. We kind of talked about it the first time we talked about Cobra Kai and how did all these kids learn karate in like 3 weeks and be that great at it to win tournaments. Same with Daniel LaRusso in the first movie. I mean, it could be a testament to Mr. Miyagi and how great he was as a teacher, but Daniel only trained with him for like 2 weeks and he like won the whole tournament while being injured. But the same with Miguel's recovery. It was like that season 3 was over the span of like a month at the most. And he went from being like completely paralyzed, probably forever, almost dying, to, oh, I'm doing karate now. And I'm like, how did you recover that fast? And if those are the doctors, wow.
If there's anything we've learned from Johnny Lawrence is the power of porn and rock music, right? I mean, that single-handedly was able to, get his foot tapping and get him walking. So that said, real recovery from real spinal injuries rarely end with that kind of ending. And even when they recover, generally speaking, it's a long path to even being able to walk normally, let alone to go out and fight again. So
Yeah, and I kind of was under the impression, honestly, they didn't really clarify what kind of like time frame from the first episode to the finale, really how much time had really passed. We know that the first episode was immediately after the last episode, and maybe I think they said 2 weeks had passed in between the two seasons, but it was almost right away. But over the course of the next 9 episodes, it could have been months. We don't really know. They didn't say one way or the other. I assume it would have been months or
right.
close to a year. I know at one point it was Christmas, and I think it might have been like summertime at the end of the second season. So maybe we did have 3 or 4 months there over time. But you kind of have to suspend that disbelief and be like, okay, fine, he healed.
Right.
The rest of the show, wow. I mean, I really liked the flashbacks. It kind of reminded me of Arrow in a way, showing John Kreese and his past in the military, because before then you never saw any of that. Like, he was in the military and in Vietnam and all this stuff, but you didn't know anything else.
Yeah, and for me, my dad fought in both Vietnam and Korea. Interestingly enough, at exactly the same time, he enlisted and was sent to Vietnam and Korea in 1968, exactly the same time when John Kreese was supposed to be there. And so, for me, I mean, Kreese is a creep, right? He's a creep. He's a jerk. He's a monster.
Yeah.
And yet, I never had really looked at him as a Vietnam veteran, and probably as somebody who has some undiagnosed PTSD that he's never really dealt with. And so, in a way, for me, I think it helped to humanize him. I think
Definitely.
as we look at all of these characters, right? Whether it's Daniel or whether it's Johnny, the truth I think that we notice in all of this is that no character is perfectly good or completely bad, right?
Right.
Like, just like what we see with Daniel and his wife Amanda, right? Or Johnny. They appear publicly to be this perfect family and everything's great, and yet their family isn't all that fantastic. They really have some problems they're dealing with, and they do some really shady stuff in order to kind of get their revenge under the table at Johnny. And I think all of us want to hate Johnny, and yet the fact that he reaches out and becomes this father figure to Miguel, who really needed someone to step in, certainly helped to redeem him in my eyes.
Yeah, and I really liked the fact that they sort of address the fan theories over the years from Karate Kid that maybe Daniel was the real bad guy the entire time. And maybe that the kick was illegal and all this stuff, like all these theories, they played into that. And then kind of like you said, they're not good or bad. There's just, it's all gray, and they don't really have, except for John Kreese, he's just bad. But then again, showing his past kind of shows why he is the way he is. So maybe it's not entirely his fault.
What do they say about all villains? All villains are heroes in their own eyes, right? John Kreese really thinks that he is doing these kids a favor by teaching them how to survive in the real world, right?
Because he,
and that's certainly that's his viewpoint, and he kind of looks at everybody else who's not on board with it, almost like they're just kind of spoiled children that just don't understand. That seems to be his idea, but he's gonna destroy anybody that tries to get in his way to keep him from doing it. I do think though that fight that Kreese has with the other officer while they're there in that POW camp, really that fight to the death. The fact that he had the opportunity to show mercy and to once they were free, and he chooses to kill him anyway. To me, that was a pretty dark moment.
It really was.
I was like, oh man, I've really misunderstood John Kreese in this whole thing. And then he kills the guy, like cold-blooded, murks him, and I'm like, man, that's pretty cold, even for Kreese.
Now, I wonder if maybe he was blaming that guy for his girlfriend dying, even though, because that was the same guy, I think, right, that gave him the news later on, like, oh yeah, she's dead, dude. I should have told you like 3 months ago, but I don't want you to be distracted. Was that the same guy? Okay,
it's the same one. They essentially wanted to make sure that he would go out in the field with a clear head, and if he was, mourning his dead ex, he certainly would not be able to go out there and cover somebody's back.
And that's probably what he was dealing with.
But certainly the guy went out of his way to egg him on.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
For sure. And it was really interesting too, because there's one character we haven't seen since Karate Kid, was it 3? And that was Terry Silver. And you see him in, those flashbacks. And it took me a while to realize, oh my God, that's the dude. Like, that's who that's supposed to be. And I thought back to Karate Kid 3, and I was like, that's right. He gets him back into Cobra Kai in the 3rd movie, because he's like, I owe you from back in the war. Like, and that was the moment that we saw, and that made that connection. So I would probably say it's safe to assume that season 4 would have Terry Silver.
I think I would put real foldable cash money on the fact that he'll be in season number 4. There are certainly talks that Hilary Swank's character will make an appearance as well. I'm not as excited about that, but hey,
no.
As we talked about before, I clearly have my favorites. I feel like the first 2 movies are outstanding. The 3rd movie was garbage, and then I don't even want to talk about the last 2. But they're telling a story. I'm going to let them do it the best they can. So I will say that I watched season 3. We just binged it straight through. I watched it with my kids, and the time that Daniel spends in Japan, probably for me, was the highlight of the entire season.
Yeah, and that was like the first half of this. Well, not the first half, but it was like a good 4 episodes.
It was.
There.
It was great, and there were certainly moments in there where, like, my jaw was dropped, that I was really surprised, and there were some things that I was worried was going to happen. You think about Amanda and Daniel, right? They're married, but we've certainly seen their relationship being on the rocks a lot.
Yeah.
Not just professionally, but their married relationship had seemed really rough, and I had thought, well, this is a really bad time for Daniel to be in Japan by himself, and for him to, accidentally bump into his ex while he was there. That said, I loved it that he did, and while they sort of were trying to set up this expectation that Daniel was going to cheat while he was away, I just got to say I was so glad that wasn't the direction that they went. Right?
Yeah, it would have been bad. I mean, I was kind of hoping, but at the same time, it's like, it's not worth it, because then season 4 would have been all about, please forgive me, Amanda. Like, and we really don't need that,
Right.
It would have been nice to kind of see.
I really do feel like.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see where a broken Daniel would be, since we saw broken Johnny. Where would broken Daniel be? But then again, it's like, I don't know. That's just too much going on for everybody to be all sad and depressed.
I think there's enough broken in this whole thing, and I feel that what's happened with him, professionally with his business and the challenges that his family is having, I feel like the what's going on between him and Johnny has revealed that he's not quite as over or as well adjusted as we might all think. But
Yeah.
I did feel that time that he spent in Japan was necessary, and and I think there were things that he needed to learn. I think first that he needed to reconnect with kind of spiritually with Miyagi in a very real sense of where he came from. He needed to kind of get back to that, right?
Yeah.
Here he'd been honoring Miyagi's legacy, but really holding on to resentment, and going back there allowed him to finally let go and forgive, at least in one small way, right? Him bumping into Chosen was one of those moments, right? And I thought, of course, they break the episode right when Chosen walks in the door, and you realize that he's been set up, right?
Yeah, that was crazy. I knew he was going to be there because I'd seen, I can't help it. I look up like, who's going to be here? Secrets. Tell me more. And so I knew for a fact he was going to be there. Now, other appearances, I had no clue, but I didn't know what context it was going to be. Like, I didn't know if Chosen was going to be, oh, I hate you still, or if it's going to be like, hey, buddy, like it ended up being. But, and I got to say, like, I'm so glad he did like the whole, like, honk, and they did, that whole thing. That was amazing. I'm so glad they did that.
Well, that had to happen at some point, right?
Yeah, I mean,
that had been the move, right? That had been the move that Daniel had given him. He had the opportunity to finish him, to essentially kill him in order to end it, and instead he honked his nose and live or die, man. So I thought that it turned things around. I thought it was, Daniel needed to learn the importance of forgiveness.
Right.
And there was even that scene near the end before they left where Daniel said, "Man, I wish that forgiveness was always this easy." And Chosen said something along the lines of, why is it not, right? Something along those lines.
Yeah.
And that I really think it's meant to be a question for almost as much for Daniel as it is for us. Is why don't we forgive more? But there was that neat moment there where we realized that that both of them are sensei, and that Chosen had been taught stuff that Miyagi had never passed on to Daniel, right? That whole nerve blocking technique. Now, we talk about the ability of characters to miraculously recover. We have not talked about the speed at which Daniel has mastered the art of nerve blocking.
Right.
Was not in Japan very long. And yet,
I mean,
right?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Chris Farley from Beverly Hills Ninja. But Chris Farley in that movie, he trained for years and years. He lived there, and he just was terrible. But when it counted, he was like, boom, I'm the great master now. And it kind of reminded me of that in a way. Not so comedic, but, and it's Daniel always learned quick. Maybe that's maybe that's why these kids can learn quick, because he's teaching half of them. But it does amaze me, because in the first movie, it's like, I know nothing. He's like, oh, you learn from a book. And then 2 weeks later, he's a karate master. So it's like, well, the same with Luke Skywalker, too, if you remember in Star Wars.
I kind of accept. Oh, yeah.
I mean,
1 minute the guy can hardly hold a lightsaber, or the next he's battling Vader.
Yeah.
I totally get that. I believe in the first movie for Daniel, his quick learning was because he knew that it was either fight or die, right?
Right.
And that motivation made him train harder, made him take it seriously, and I believe that in my mind, that kind of made sense why he progressed as quickly as he did. In this case, I mean, he's not calling his wife Amanda and saying, "Hey, hon, I'm going to be in Japan for the next 3 years," right? This is
Yeah.
essentially maybe a week when he's
Mhm.
there. But yeah, who knew that Daniel LaRusso was such a quick study?
And not only that, like Chosen shows it to him once, and he's like, "Can you teach me?" And then he just gives him the scroll that was like that belonged to like Mr. Miyagi's like grandfather or whatever. And then it's like it's written all in Japanese, so he takes it home, not knowing how to do the move, reads it in Japanese, not being able to read Japanese, and then mastering the move. I thought that was a little funny. Or maybe he can read Japanese. I don't know, but he couldn't read those letters.
I don't think it was an instruction booklet necessarily of
Right.
how to do the nerve block technique. I think that it was. I think that for it was just like he has those two rules of Miyagi-Do karate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Karate for self-defense only. Rule number 1. Rule number 2. Refer to rule number 1, right?
Yeah.
Clearly Daniel doesn't speak Japanese or read it,
Right.
and yet he knows what those signs say. I think that he had wanted those scrolls as a connection to
Yeah.
the karate that he learned from Miyagi and to his memory, and so.
Right.
I think he was simply just modeling what Chosen had shown him.
Yeah. And then the scrolls have little figures and kind of like movements and poses that like he could then practice and everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, what about seeing Elizabeth Shue come back in as Allie? I mean, I thought that was going to happen, especially at the end of season 2 with the text, or not the text message, but the friend request. And to see her picture on the Facebook profile in the show, I'm like, oh, they're going to have her. And then she was only there for like maybe 2 episodes, but still, she was there, and that was really cool.
Right. If you notice, just the way things are set up, is that Daniel with Yukio and Johnny with Elizabeth Shue's character, right? That it's really the same thing, right? Both men are placed in a situation where they could essentially cheat. They reconnect, and yet they nothing really happens, right? Like
Yeah.
Johnny is able to forgive, and she's able to forgive him, and it's like no time has passed. She doesn't harbor any resentment, and I kind of thought maybe they might hook up a little bit.
Yeah, I thought that would be great.
I kept expecting. Who's the lady that lives next to him? It's Miguel's mother.
Yeah, Carmen? Is it Carmen?
Carmen. Yeah, I kept waiting for Carmen to catch them together.
Yeah, that would be great.
He was somehow, getting with her, at the same time. Mind you, Johnny and Carmen's relationship really had not been very clearly defined. Right?
Especially after,
they're having sex, but they're not officially dating or anything.
Well, yeah, they kind of were in season 2, but then the whole fight thing, she's like, no more, I never want to see you again. So that was kind of done. And they maybe just kind of got back together a little bit, but like you said, they didn't really define it as anything. So she really wouldn't have been able to get mad at him. But I guess seeing Allie and going through all that, and then them being at that ball or dine, whatever that whole thing was that event, the same way they were in the first movie, it kind of like he realized, oh, this isn't what I want. That woman is who I want. And so he kind of just matured as far as like making up his mind and like knowing like, oh, okay, I appreciate love, not just like sex and parties. That's what yeah.
I think that he realized that he finally got Allie off his mind.
Mm-hmm.
Hadn't he sort of obsessed about her? I mean, how many times had he tried sending a message to her like he was some, teenage boy, and
pages and pages and pages.
Right.
Oh man.
Right. And even Miguel's like, oh, you can't send that, right? So, and I think we've all been in that position before where we're tempted to put something on social media that maybe we shouldn't send.
I've done that a few times.
But yeah. But I do believe that it was really great seeing her come back, especially to that role. And you always wonder what happened between her and Daniel.
Yeah, they never really explained.
I mean, it seemed like they don't. No, it seemed like they were the perfect boyfriend and girlfriend at the end of the first movie, and then by the second movie, it's like, Allie who?
And it's almost like Daniel's as bad as Johnny, because Johnny's been with at least 3 women, because there was Allie and then I don't remember her name, but his son Robbie, like her mom, and then those 3. And same with Daniel. I mean, it was Allie, and then it was the girl from Karate Kid 2, 3. Oh no, well, he goes to Japan and that whole thing, and then in 3 he meets that one girl. And so it's like he can't like keep a connection until he meets his wife, and then they stay together for like 20 years, whatever it was. But the more I watch and the more I think about it, the more alike those 2 guys really are in so many different ways.
Right. I mean, I think that we realized that Johnny had become a bully because of how he taught, right? He was Kreese's top student. And he had taken that on, and then we also realized that because of the way that he was raised by his own father, right? Mm-hmm. That or was it his father or his stepfather?
I think it's his stepfather, yeah.
But he was really a product of his environment. That he would, end up attaching himself to Kreese. As a surrogate father.
I kind of have a prediction on, I don't know if it's going to be season 4, maybe season 5, but I think his stepfather is gonna die at some point. And as much as he's like, you're not getting my money, you bum, you bum, you bum, I think when he dies, he's going to leave Johnny everything. I don't know why. I just have the feeling that he's going to leave everything to him. And then I don't know where that will go, but it goes from broken Johnny to like, oh, now I have a son, like that. Maybe him and his real son will maybe reconnect. But as we saw at the end of the 3rd movie or the 3rd season, wow, Robbie has actually joined Cobra Kai.
Right, and I'm glad you bring up Robbie Keane in this whole thing, played by Tanner Buchanan. Right, I'm glad that you bring him up, simply because he really does seem to do a 180. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, just as soon as he becomes Daniel's student, he does this complete turnaround and turns to the dark side. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a 360 in a way, because you first see him at the first episode of Cobra Kai. He's like a bad guy stealing stuff, and then he turns his life around, and then he's like, you know what? Screw all that. I'm going to go be bad again.
Well, it was almost like they were having this type of war between Johnny and Daniel. And it was almost like Robbie said, screw you. I'm not going to go with either of you. Right?
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, it's just like, well, that's kind of what happened. I mean, because then Kreese takes over Cobra Kai, and then that whole thing happens. But what shocked me more was after the big fight, and I loved that fight. The final big fight in season 3, they were in the LaRusso home, like fighting everywhere, and that was amazing. you see at the end of it, or near the end of the fight, Hawk and a bunch of the other Cobra Kai kids are like, you know what? We're sorry. We'll help you. And then it's like, wow. I still hate Hawk though. I still want to punch him in the face, but like because I don't know if he's actually legit like, okay, I'm a good guy, I'm sorry, or if he's kind of just, I have this feeling that he might just be like a snake in the grass, and then one day when they least expect it, he's gonna like just boom, ha ha ha, tricked you, I don't know.
I really do believe that they had been kind of seeding us with this idea that Hawk was going to kind of redeem himself. I think that him in what he did to Eli in breaking his arm, and that was the event where he realized that he had gone too far, and outwardly to everybody he was really proud, but inwardly he had realized that wasn't who he wanted to be. And then the idea that here he had thought that Kreese had loyalty to all the people on his team. And when he realized that they could all be easily replaced if they didn't measure up to his expectations, he realized that why am I showing loyalty to this guy if he could literally kick me out at any minute? You remember that scene with the snake, right? He's like, Kreese has the snake, and they let the kids play with the rat, and then he wants them to go and throw the rat to the snake.
Yep.
And that was the first time when I realized that Hawk was going to change at some point. Because he couldn't do that.
I mean, they sprinkled little hints throughout, all 3 seasons really. Right. I think it might have been the first season when his buddy was like, they came out with a new issue of this comic. He's like, really? Or no, they were talking about Doctor Who or something like that, and he just seemed so excited. He's like, oh wait, shut up! I don't like that nerd shit. And then he kind of like changed his tune, and then so you kind of saw early on that this whole time he's like, I miss my friend, but at the same time felt all this pressure to be badass and not be pushed around, and it was that struggle. And I think a lot of young boys go through that kind of struggle. Maybe not where they beat the crap out of their friends, but
Right. I think that Hawk had become a character of himself. Right? He decides that in order for him to not be seen as this geek with a deformed lip, that he would go over the top in aggression in order to compensate for that. Right? It's that the short man's complex, or the guy with the small dick who buys a fast car. Right?
Yeah. Or like really, Lamborghini
I will, we can guess what the height of his mohawk was all about. But but I do believe that Hawk was overcompensating for that. When some of the new kids come on and he remembers them as being bullies who attacked him before his transformation, I think that kind of chipped away at some of the confidence that he had.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of see him like just kind of back down, like oh, and you hadn't seen that at all since season 1. So you could really tell in the beginning of season 3 that he was going to turn, and especially when he failed to steal the Cobra out of the zoo. I don't think he failed. I think he chose to not do it because he's like, this is messed up. Like, what are we doing? We got to stop this. And it is nice to see that he turned. I don't know why. I just expect some kind of double cross somewhere in season 4. You haven't really seen a double cross. Except for, in Karate Kid 3 when Terry Silver like kind of faked out Daniel and all that, but
I think that anything is possible. However, I do feel like in the case of Hawk, I think that they've been slowly walking him in this direction.
Yeah.
Of him finally being able to be himself. and that is he's really a geek who's been overcompensating, trying to hide that from everybody else.
And now we're going to see like a balance between the whole badass Hawk and the whole I'm a little geek. You're going to see like the in between where he's like, I don't care what you think. If you say something, I'll kick your ass. Like, I don't care.
Well, and isn't that really kind of the theme of this entire season? It is that we see two people who really we never thought we would share the same space. And yet here we have Johnny and Daniel who have now fused Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do together. And, if they can do that, then maybe, these two very different groups that have always hated each other will finally bury the hatchet.
Yeah, and then mostly, it's most of Cobra Kai. There's really no others left with Kreese, I don't think, other than all the new people. Most of all of the main characters that were Cobra Kai are now over with one big thing. I don't know. I guess they're gonna go with the name. They referenced when they were meeting at school or wherever it was. They said, "Okay, our two groups will join, and now we have to think of where we will train and what our name is going to be." They mentioned coming up with a new name. So I wonder if they're just going to stick with Miyagi-Do or if it's going to be Miyagi Fang Karate. Like, what are we,
Well, so let me first say that I think that it was pretty universally agreed that that Eagle Fang Karate was just a really stupid name.
It was very stupid.
A very stupid name. He was trying to find something that sounded strong and powerful, but that wasn't going to stick. But at the same time, just as that both of their styles are going to end up being, being fused into one as far as training goes and everything else. I think that also their name is going to have to be some kind of fusion between the two, like Miyagi Kai or something like that.
Miyagi Kai sounds cool.
Yeah.
Or like just I don't know. Maybe they just combine their names and just call it Lawrence LaRusso Do or something. I don't know. I mean, that sounds kind of cheesy. It sounds more like a law firm or something, but Lawrence and LaRusso and Son or something.
Right.
But,
right.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's the point. I don't think they're really going to focus too much on the name, to be honest. It's just going to be like, how are their styles going to mesh? Are they going to mesh well? And will they argue as like co-senseis, or what? Is there going to be any conflict? Or I think they're probably finally going to go to the term. It's going to be a lot like Karate Kid 3, I think, though. I really feel like Terry Silver's going to come back in. And even the guy, I forget his name, that Daniel fought in Karate Kid 3, that guy, I've heard rumors that he might be coming in to do that.
I would not be shocked by that at all. I will say that, there's an old Chinese proverb that said, 2 tigers cannot inhabit the same mountain. And I do wonder the same thing is, Johnny and Daniel have never successfully worked together. Even that brief stint where they were going to find Robbie and they fight together, they even that kind of ended with them, walking away from each other in disgust. I do wonder. I would put real foldable cash money down that there's going to be a lot of drama in how they work together in order to teach these kids. Because, it's one thing to bring the kids together, and it's another for you to start saying, we're going to work. But, how is Daniel going to stop Johnny from maybe pushing the kids too far? And how is Johnny going to push Daniel's kids from being, flyweight pacifists? You know what I mean? It's going to take a lot of work and a lot of time. But I do think, I was thinking about how are we going to resolve all this mess going on with this show? And I thought, man, this is the only way that they're going to make it happen.
And you got to wonder too, like, in the end of season 4 won't be some big happy ending where, Cobra Kai's banned again, and John Kreese goes off into hiding again, and everybody's happy because they're talking about 5, 6 seasons at least. So
Right.
what kind of stories could you tell? Unless it's kind of one of those things where, okay, they're joined together now to fight against the evil Cobra Kai, and then season 5 could be all about, okay, now Cobra Kai's gone and Johnny splits away, and then there's Daniel versus Johnny again. I don't know. There's got to be stories that they have in mind at least, or on paper somewhere, that they have an idea of where they're going to go with it. But it's really going to be interesting to see where that goes and how far they can go with it. Because as long as there's people watching and there's a demand for it, the Cobra Kai could hit 10 or 12 seasons. Who knows?
Right. So I will say that the characters we haven't talked a whole lot about are the characters Tori and Samantha.
Mm-hmm.
So just as Robbie and Miguel are sort of pitted against each other, and Eli, there does seem to be a real duality in the show that everybody has, even the two skinny dorky kids, right? Somehow pair up against each other in this big fight, and so we certainly see that with Samantha and Tori, and Samantha, is in a very real way dealing with the fallout, literally, of what happened at the big bullfight, right?
A very intense fear that she has in this. It's really like holding her back through most of the season.
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy. And I can see why. I mean, the girl pretty much went Wolverine on her and clawed her to death. Well, not to death, but
those were some pretty serious brass knuckles.
Yeah, I mean, she had those permanent scars, and it's just I guess it was on her arm, wherever it was, but still, it's like, if that girl's going to do that, and if nobody had stopped her, and if, she would have killed her. So, I mean, I could see being afraid of that. And you don't know if she's going to hit you with a spiked brass knuckle. Maybe next time she's going to pull a gun and shoot you in the face. Who knows?
Right. Yeah, it certainly is. It certainly is understandable. And so the fact that her first instinct was to run, right? She realizes for herself that she's just not ready. And it wasn't just dealing with Tori, but it was dealing with the entire school who knows that she was involved, right?
Yeah.
So some people had blamed her for what had happened to Miguel, right? Because had she not been, messing with Miguel, some people had believed that the fight wouldn't have started at all.
Probably wouldn't have.
Yeah.
But then again, it's equally as much his fault, because he could have done the same thing. I shouldn't be messing with her, but still, that's a lot of pressure.
It is. I did like where it went. That she ultimately returns, and she decides that she's going to. Ironically, she decides to strike first, doesn't she?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She sees a group of her old friends talking about her, and she confronts them directly, and said, "You have something to say to my face."
Mm-hmm.
And it was at that same time that she essentially shows off her scars and faces her fears, and doesn't let people intimidate her. So I certainly appreciated that.
Oh yeah.
I wish that dealing with all bullies was that easy to overcome.
Yeah.
For some people, it takes years and years of therapy and counseling. But hey, this is TV.
Yeah, I mean, everything's rapid in TV. Everything goes a lot faster, especially children in sitcoms. They'll be 6 months old, and next year they'll be 3 years old. So
exactly, I still feel
Yep.
Oh no, so I still feel like the this fight between Samantha and Tori that escalates when they literally go and trash and attack them at the LaRusso's house.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know how that could get much worse. Maybe if somebody dropped a nuclear weapon on top of their house,
Yeah.
that's going to be a hard. That's going to be a hard fight to top.
Or if you just kind of like murder her brother or something like, which that character, what is his name? Daniel's son. I
So
can't remember the kid's name.
yeah, so that the brother is Anthony.
Yes, Anthony. And that kid went through a transformation. I mean, wow. And it's the same kid, from what I understand, as it was from season 1 and 2.
Really?
Now you look at season 3, and he looks totally different. But apparently it's the same kid. I mean, it could be wrong. It could be a different kid. But either way, it's like you don't see much of him. So I wonder why they even have a second kid, because you might see him 1 or 2 episodes a season, and that's it. It's like, okay, he's there like, where's my waffles, Dad and Mom? Ha, 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 yum, yum, yum. And you don't see him until like the next season.
Right. I think his character certainly came up a lot in the first season.
Yeah.
When we realized that Daniel's idyllic home life is not as great as he wants everybody to think, right? That, hey, we're rich, we've got a great business, and my family's perfect, and we realize, okay, you got a spoiled brat for a kid.
Yeah.
So I believe that was really his role in the storyline.
Yeah.
And now that he is not an important part, right? Like he doesn't want to learn karate. They've essentially written him out of the story, right?
Yeah, I just hope he doesn't become like Judy Winslow, from Family Matters, when Steve Urkel got popular and like everyone forgot Judy Winslow existed until eventually at the end of the series she didn't exist.
Judy who?
Yeah, when Judy Winslow, yeah. Well, there you go. I'm like, Judy Winslow,
Right.
But yeah, I mean, she just completely vanished.
Right. But I do believe, that sometimes writers have to be slaves to the story, just keeping Anthony around because he's a part of the LaRusso family. But if he doesn't add anything to the storyline, now we don't know. Maybe by season 6, he'll have worked off all of his puppy fat, and he'll be this kick-ass ninja. Who knows? But we'll see.
I mean, they're probably going to do something with him at some point.
Right.
I would imagine.
Right now, though, I feel like there's enough drama in the show that they don't really need him to bring in more drama.
Because the next thing we're going to see is like, a lunch lady fighting against another lunch lady because they make Salisbury steak differently or something, and they're going to have a karate fight. I don't know.
Well, hey, I take my Salisbury steak very seriously.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you go to school, you have a long day at school, you want to eat some good Salisbury steak. You don't want some of that frozen crap,
Some things are worth dying for.
Oh, yeah. And I used to love the little rectangle-shaped pizzas that they gave you in school. I used to love that stuff. I mean, it's terrible looking back, but...
Right. It's crazy because I grew up in Portland, and I remember when I was in school that, as bad a rap as school lunches got, in elementary school, they made food from scratch, right? Macaroni and cheese, pizza, wiener wraps. One of those things that I've been nostalgic for. And when we moved to California, everything ended up, arriving in a microwave plastic container. So anyway, I know that's completely off topic, but you did it too. You made me think.
Yeah, it was me. It was my fault.
It is your fault.
I mean, we really dove into Cobra Kai there. I mean, which was cool because we really needed to talk about that. In Crisis, though, I don't know. what could we really say about Crisis? I mean, I did rewatch it, and it's probably been, gosh, when was that? Like a month ago, maybe, that I rewatched it.
Yeah. So I think the question that I pose to you is this: when it comes to Crisis, does it hold up? It's like the challenge for me is if I go and read a book, if I'm willing to go back and reread that book a second time, and it's still just as good the second time, for me, that's really what qualifies it as being a good book.
Right. Same with movies or anything else. Yeah.
Exactly. Did Crisis, when you watched it again, did it have the same impact to you as the first time?
I think it had it still like I think it still held up, but slightly less, because the only lesser value to it was there was no more shock. I think initially watching it, you're like, oh my gosh, there's this character, this is happening, oh my god. And so now that you know exactly what's going to happen next, it's not as like strong, but I think the story overall still holds up, because again, we haven't really seen anything from these shows in about a year. So this is like the biggest, like craziest thing we had ever of these shows. And the stories and the things they go through, I think, are still just as important now as they were a year ago when that came on the first time. And it's crazy to think that it's been a year since the Crisis debuted.
Well, we've been, and I feel like, we've been in Crisis ourselves this year, right?
I think that's part of what makes it still so good.
Right. I still enjoyed it when I watched it again. I do feel like on watching it a second time that some of the pieces of the story were stronger than others. I did find that that sometimes they were so focused on trying to shoehorn in, a guest appearance or a cameo, that some parts of the plot just didn't work as much as I would have liked them to.
Yeah, I mean, for like this, I go back to the Smallville scene again, like Tom Welling, and that was amazing to see that. And I know a lot of those cameos were purely fan service, and like, when's the next time you're gonna have to like get all these people together into one project and say, here you go, here's these people. But had they not had that scene with him, for instance, and that was probably one of the beefier cameos that was in the entire Crisis, because most of them were here and there, like Burt Ward, like, holy crimson skies of death. Like, that was awesome to see, but most of them were a few seconds. And then Tom Welling had, like, what was it, 5 to 10 minutes or something like that? It's what it felt like. But it was great. But what did that accomplish? Nothing. I mean, as far as the story, and you see Lex Luthor, you only really see one Superman that he killed, and you don't see him killing him. When they go and they say, let's stop him from killing this Superman, and they look on the screen and there's the iconic image of the Death of Superman comic played out in live action on the news on that Earth. That's the only Superman you see die. And so what was Lex Luthor really doing? How many Supermen did he kill anyway? He didn't really kill that many, at least the one we know of, but aside from that, it's like, what was that all about? Like, and then he becomes a paragon at the end to save the day. Like, why are you trying to kill everybody? And then, I know the world is ending, and if I had the ability to save myself, I probably would be tempted to do the same thing and erase Superman and write myself in there. But I don't know. Like, Lex Luthor, the more I think about it, it was kind of all over the place during that whole thing.
Right. I had not quite gotten exactly what made him, like, clearly the Monitor had thought he was important enough to bring back to life. And it certainly did create a lot of drama in the storyline. If it wasn't enough that they were battling the Anti-Monitor and the destruction of all worlds in the entire multiverse, the idea that they also have to go and stop Lex from murdering every Superman on every Earth. That was plenty. And I wish that they had explained it more, that that Lex doing that allowed them to it helped them to reveal who the Paragon was.
Yeah.
I wish that had been just a little bit more clear, other than just the idea that you're going to, introduce us to, to the Superman Returns Superman.
Yeah, only for him to be completely like erased from existence, basically.
Right.
But he did get rewritten back into reality at the end of it all. But I mean, still, it's like the whole journey to find him. That was like an entire episode of Crisis. Was like, let's find Superman.
There was a lot of time that they had spent on that plot line of stopping Lex from killing the Superman. And
I was really let down because I thought Tom Welling was going to be that Superman. I had a feeling he wasn't, but I was like, come on, maybe, just maybe. And knowing that he gets erased, why not?
Right. I will say that that while for me Christopher Reeve will always be my Superman, because he was the first one that I really remember watching as a kid. However, I was really impressed with the way that I can't even remember the name of the actor now who played him. Do you remember the guy who played it?
Like Superman Returns?
Yeah.
Oh, Brendan Routh. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I had never really taken him seriously in the role. However, when I compare Brandon Routh to Tyler Hoechlin, for example, there's no comparison. Brandon Routh is Superman.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And I almost felt like they were doing that in the episode.
I think so.
Like, who are you?
He's so small.
He is. So that part of it, I think there were some other issues to me. If the idea had always been that the Monitor was going to die and that it was going to come down to this big cataclysmic battle between the Anti-Monitor and Oliver Queen as the Spectre, why go through all that hassle of getting the heroes off of Earth 38 and evacuating all those people?
Yeah, I mean, if they're just gonna rewrite reality and save all these people all over again, why even try to because at that point, maybe it was to get Oliver to die so that he could go to purgatory to become the Spectre. Maybe that was the plan. But then the Monitor said this was not the ending I foresaw for Mr. Queen. So it wasn't supposed to happen that way. So it makes you wonder, how was Oliver supposed to end? He was going to die. We know that pretty much. And we figure he might have become the Spectre, but at a later time. But still, he didn't really need to do that.
I remember. Yeah, there's the Reverse Flash, and the Reverse Flash had said, Oliver Queen, you're not supposed to die until you're 87 years old, right? Something along those lines. So there is this idea that there had been different options for Oliver Queen, that he didn't necessarily have to die at that moment, but the choices that he made, right? Oliver made the choice to hold the line and keep fighting to give those other ships a chance to escape. He saves 1 billion lives at the cost of his own.
And I was really hoping that he'd come back, because when they got him down to that the Lazarus pit and he comes out of it, I'm like, okay, cool. They're gonna go get his soul, and then everything's gonna be cool. But then no. But I still don't know what happened. I watching it again, I don't know what they did with Oliver's body that was running around without a soul. like I'm guessing like after they rewrote reality, it just I know that body was wiped away with all that antimatter when Earth one was destroyed, but like maybe his body just I don't know. I don't know why Oliver couldn't have like survived all of that. Because after Crisis was over and everything was good, why could he not have been rewritten like everybody else?
Right. I think because the Spectre had essentially sacrificed himself. I don't know why the old Spectre had to choose that moment to
Yeah.
transfer things over to Oliver. Like at the time when you need somebody who actually knows what he's doing, you're going to
Yeah.
go and give that to somebody else. To me, that didn't make a whole lot of sense, other than the fact that they wanted to have Oliver Queen play that role.
Yeah, and it was great with it. I mean, and I was shocked that Oliver actually died the first time and the first episode.
Yeah.
It was like the first night. It's like, holy crap. I thought it was going to be like maybe the third or fourth part, but no, it's right away. He's gone.
Right. But it was a very long goodbye, right? Like he
yeah.
died in the first episode, but the repercussions of it go on for the entire Crisis. So
I mean, and I wonder.
the one character that I was underwhelmed by was Ryan Choi.
Yeah.
To me, that was like, we're gonna get all of these powerful heroes together as the Paragons. They're the ones that are going to fight, and then Ryan Choi. And
Yeah, I think maybe he'll be back for Legends or something because Ray Palmer left. They took him out of the show, so Adam Choi was the next Adam. So, but in Crisis though, just in Crisis, he kind of was like, what did he do? He was like, I'm scared. I'm gonna go home to be with my wife, and then it's like, oh, okay, I'll go with you. But then what did he do?
Right. Well, we in the last episode of Crisis, Ryan Choi had used his knowledge about miniaturization, right, to create that explosive that made the anti-monitor shrink forever, right?
Yeah.
So he had a role to play in that part of it. I did find it kind of hilarious though, in the when they're kind of at the dawn of time and they're fighting all of those floating demons.
Yeah.
While Oliver and the anti-monitor are having their scuffle, that Ryan is running around punching people, and I was like, hold on a minute. I mean, how is he killing these demons? He doesn't have any powers, as far as we know.
Yeah,
no training. Some lab geek someplace, no suit, no nothing, and yet now they want him to fight. And I thought that
it's kind of like if season 1 Cisco or the original Harrison Wells or anybody like that would have fought. It's like they don't have powers, they don't have tools or gadgets, they just have themselves. Like, what did he? And as far as his like shrinking knowledge, like why couldn't Ray Palmer had done that?
Right.
He easily could have done it because Ryan Choi kind of was like, oh my God, you're Ray Palmer. Like, I like you. And you're so he was obviously an inspiration to that guy. So like, why couldn't he just do it all? You didn't really need him at all. So I think, I kind of agree with that.
Yeah. I believe that like what you had talked about, that with Ray Palmer's character leaving the Wave Rider and Legends, they wanted to shoehorn him in there to help introduce him to us so that we're not going to be like, who the hell is this guy when he finally joined the team.
And that's the same thing they did with Batwoman the year before with Elseworlds. She had nothing to do with anything. And all of a sudden, like, who's this?
Yeah.
And then, boom, next year, here's this whole series.
Yeah. I agree with that. I will say that that the only other disappointing thing to me was in the last episode, you have John Jones, right? And so everything has been reset. Everybody is back on
Mhm.
is now on one Earth, but they don't remember anything of what happened before. And
Yeah.
John Jones goes around and one at a time goes in and resets everybody's memory so that they remember where they came from. I will say that kind of storytelling is kind of lazy, right? It's
Yeah.
I'm just going to go around and now I'm just going to catch all of you guys up. I'm just going to touch your forehead, and voila, you remember.
It's like, why even have them forget to begin with?
Right.
Just
Uh,
just so you can remember that he has the power to manipulate minds, I guess.
right. I get it. At the same time, I almost feel like he did them a disservice.
Yeah.
Like, why would you do that?
Take that away from them and make them realize, like, hey, this was really crappy. Like, remember that?
Yeah, you're going to remind them of a life that no longer exists.
Some of your loved ones no longer exist. I'm so glad you remember that.
Thanks for that, John.
Yeah, really. I mean, like, what was there to benefit from it? I mean,
right. And as we find out, reestablishing people's memories is only going to cause it's only caused more problems.
mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah.
And I think as far as the ending of Crisis with the whole, Justice League and the Hall of Justice, all of that, which was cool, but now that we look at it, half of those characters are going to be gone by this time next year. Because you already know there's a different Batwoman. So is the new Batwoman then introduced to everyone else like, oh, you're Batwoman now. Come on in. We already have a chair for you. Maybe. But then, you're going to have an empty Arrow chair, which I thought would be filled by, Oliver's daughter. But now we officially know that the Green Arrow and Canary show is not picked up. It's not going anywhere.
Right. I think that those chairs, I certainly feel like, they can always add more chairs and take chairs out. The fact that there was a table and a Hall of Justice in any way or form, I thought it was about damn time. That's kind of the way that I had felt. And just because the shows are over doesn't mean that those characters no longer exist. I still hold that they could easily continue these stories on as a Justice League of sorts. And especially now that everybody's on the same Earth.
And then I think maybe once everything with COVID is kind of normalized, and maybe hopefully by mid-year or fall, we'll be kind of back to reality, or, well, not like we're not in reality now, but back to our old reality of like, okay, we're not having to wear masks. We're not having to do this. Maybe their next big crossover could be just Justice League.
Right.
Or a play off of that, because, they've already planted the seed for that anyway. I mean, yeah, all these shows like Supergirl, Black Lightning, and Batwoman is different. Like, all these shows are gone or characters have changed. Really, the only two characters I can think of that are going to have shows still, at least so far, is Flash and Sarah Lance. Like, every other character's show is gone or whatever. But, you could still bring them back, say, once a year and say, hey, let's join up again. It's time to meet. And they don't have to have a full committed series in order to do one special.
Exactly. And I'm just crossing my fingers and hoping that, the writers on high listen to, our opinion on this, that would be the smartest way to use their acting talent and their plots, is to kind of allow for changing up the teams a little bit more often, and yet that would also allow them to tackle on maybe bigger characters and enemies than they would previously. So again, I'm really hoping that's what they do, because it would be a shame for them to waste these characters and just throw them away like they don't exist. So
yeah, I mean, Definitely, yeah.
All
I'm
right. Well,
excited
yeah, I am too.
for the
I'm too,
next.
and I feel like there's still a lot of possibility out there as far as where things are going. So we talked about Cobra Kai. We talked about the crossover. I know that you've been privy to some personal things that have been going on in my life,
Mm-hmm.
as far as my diagnosis with diabetes. And I will tell you that prior to it happening to me, I had always thought of diabetes being a little bit of a joke, right? You think about they would have that picture of the Quaker Oats guy, and they would always say, "I got diabetes."
Oh yeah.
Um,
No, buddy.
but I had literally been told that I was diabetic and wound
Mm-hmm.
up in ER on an IV drip,
Mm.
getting my first dose of insulin and having them prick my fingers to check my blood sugar, being surrounded by other people with amputated limbs and sores on their feet and in various stages of suffering, and just realizing that that could be my future if I
Mm-hmm.
don't make some serious changes. It was eye opening to say the least. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you've had things happen in your life that you just that get your attention.
I mean, nothing for me. I've never had direct personal health issues that I'm like, oh wow. But with a lot of these kinds of things being hereditary and stuff, like my dad had a lot of issues with, like, a lot of kidney issues. He struggled with kidney disease and failure for, it was like 19 years,
Wow.
and because his first kidney kind of just like gave out back in 2000. And I still remember the morning. I was in middle school, I think, and he had to go to the hospital, and he took me with him because he's like, I don't know if I can get there, so you might have to drive. And here I am, like 12 years old or something. I'm like, I've never driven a car before. But he got there, and his blood pressure was like 200 something over whatever. It was ridiculous. He almost died that day, and
Wow.
they did emergency surgery, got it out of him, and he was okay for a few years. And then the other one started getting a little bad, and then they had to do like some kind of little mesh implant kind of thing to get the blood flow to it. And then back in 2014, that's when that ruptured, and then he was just losing blood, and that's when they had to kind of basically just kill the second one. I mean, and that's kind of the story of how it kind of, and he did dialysis for like 5 years before he eventually passed away, and it was really heart failure that really did him in. But looking at like the heart failure, the kidney failure, like that kind of stuff is really like, you're not guaranteed to have it, to inherit that. But because I know his father, my grandfather, had kidney issues, not as bad. He never had any removed. He did do dialysis for a little while, and then kind of got to come off of it, and then had to go back on it, I think. And then he passed away in 2011. So that's kind of scary to think about. It's like, wow, your dad and your dad's dad both, and it's like, it's my turn. I mean, and then my mom actually, I think it was maybe a year or two ago, maybe it was a couple years ago, I can't remember. She found out she was type 2 diabetic, and most of her, she just turned 60, and she'll probably kill me for saying that if she's watching. I'm at 16. Um, she she just found out like recently within the last couple of years, so it's definitely something new for her. And I've talked to her a lot about it, and luckily she doesn't have to take insulin shots or anything, but she just has the pill that she has to take. But she has to still watch really closely the sugar, the carbs, all the starches and all that kind of stuff. And she's learning how to do that. And sometimes she's not the best at it. And that was the same with my dad when he had to go on dialysis with no kidneys, and his fluid intake was limited to, I think it was like 32 ounces a day or 28 ounces, something like that. And he had to watch, he couldn't eat seeds of any kind. So if we went to fast food or something like that, anything with a seeded bun, he couldn't have it, stuff like that. And none of that has really applied to me directly, but looking at it all, it's like there's all these diseases and things in my history, or my family's history, that I will have to look out for, and if I don't make more changes now. And so I try to drink more water. I've been trying to cut sodas out for a long time, which I've failed miserably, but little things like that. I need to start eating better. I mean, I don't have any health issues now. They're not major, but yeah, I guess I just need to really take those lessons while I have the chance, because when I would take my dad to dialysis, and I'd gone into the place a few times looking around and seeing these people, some of them with amputated limbs, but not, from kidney failure. And then that hurts their other areas, and like just things just go bad. Like once one organ stops, another one stops, and another one stops, and people with, just laying there like ready to die, and it's just like miserable. And like, I mean, geez. And some people had been doing it for 20, 30 years. Yeah. Imagine that, like 2 or 3 times a week, every week for like 20, 30 years in order to survive. And so, yeah, I just, it's a lesson that I need to really take more seriously, I guess.
Yeah. I will tell you that you'd be much happier to just say, that's not the life that I want to live, and make some changes now while you have the choice. I'm in a place where I really don't have a lot of choice.
Right.
I'm either going to eat better and take my medication and exercise more, or I'm going to end up going down that road that a lot of other people have. And thankfully for me, I'm doing the things that I need to do. I've lost 10 pounds in the process, and my family's eating better because they're supporting me in what I'm doing. So that's been, if there's a silver lining to this cloud, it has been that part of this whole thing.
Well, that's good that they're kind of supporting you and kind of like eating better, and not just having like all this pizza and awesome stuff, and you're sitting there with a bowl of lettuce or something. It's good that they're kind of going along with that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm on that road, and I know it's going to be a long one, but at the same time, I feel like, I'm going to put the work in to make it.
I mean, it's crazy. I don't know.
Hey, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying it's crazy. I don't know firsthand, but I've heard of a lot of people who, have some very serious health scares that, change their diet, change their routines, and they're better, overall than they were before they, as far as their overall health, they kind of turned it around.
We both look up to Kevin Smith, and if you had seen him early on in his career, he had been overweight. And I know that he's very into intermittent fasting. Certainly,
he'll go 72 hours.
Right, he'll go longer than that.
Oh yeah,
but certainly because of his health, that's been the reason for it, and he's certainly had a transformation in his body as a result. So.
Oh yeah, he went from over 300 pounds. I think he was like, he never said an exact number, but he did admit it was well over 300. And now I think I weigh more than Kevin Smith.
Right.
It's ridiculous. I think he's down to like 180 something. Maybe we're around the same weight, but of course I'm a lot taller than he is. Not by much. I met him one time. I think he's probably just like right around this point to me, but still. There was a point where I weighed more than Kevin Smith, and I was like, geez, I've got to, it made me feel like, what am I doing with myself?
Right.
Oh.
Well, hey, I think we've covered about everything we can possibly cover at this point.
I do want to throw out one thing, and I want to say for everybody to go and follow Mark Guggenheim on Twitter. He's a good friend of us and in our show and stuff, and he's always there. And he's helped me out. He's helped this show out. So I want to just throw that out there. And pretty soon, hopefully soon, I don't know when, he'll have some projects to talk about. I know they're still working on the Green Lantern series for HBO. And when that comes out, we're going to have him on again. I don't know if it's going to be that long, but he might have something before that. But we're going to be here. He's kind of sponsoring the show. So we're going to throw some stuff out there for him whenever we have a chance. I meant to do that last week, completely forgot. And I told him, I'm like, I'll throw your Twitter out there every week. And I kind of forgot because we had Scott Schiaffo on here last week, and I was really excited to talk to him. That was a great conversation.
Well, we will continue to give shameless plugs for Mark Guggenheim.
Yeah, I'm going to do a little ad maybe one day. Maybe we can dress up and do a little. No, I don't know about all that, but like a cheesy infomercial.
Right, that would be interesting. But wait, there's more.
If you act now, you can get Crisis on 2 DVDs. I don't know.
I'm sure he could hook you up.
Yeah, and it's a shame he's not working with the Arrowverse stuff much anymore, because we could tell him, like, look, Mark, you better make Crisis number 2 better because we say so. And he'll be like, all right, you're my buddies, so I'll do that. Like, no, I don't think it would be that easy, but I mean, maybe an idea or two. Who knows? But hopefully he can come back.
More on HBO, that it's going to mean that it's going to be grittier. That's certainly something that I've noticed in watching Titans and comparing that to Arrow or Legends or Supergirl or Stargirl, is that that Titans is much more vulgar. It's much more violent, and so I can see him probably using that platform to allow him to tell a more, for lack of a better word, vivid story. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he puts together.
I'm really looking forward to that. Hopefully, it's coming sooner rather than later. I know they're still in the writing phases, but I mean, hopefully they can start filming some of that this year. I know it's a series, and I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, so Mark, if you hear this and I wasn't supposed to, sorry, but they're on like the second or third episode as far as writing the scripts, which I don't think that's a huge spoilery news piece, but now, with TV shows, they don't always have the entire series or the entire season written before they film one episode, so maybe filming is a lot sooner than we think, and hopefully, they'll probably have it written, but I don't know. Hopefully, because it's probably going to be like an hour show. I'm thinking like it's got to be at least an hour, and I'm really excited about that. I do need to check out Titans though.
You should. I've been just really impressed with what they've done. Plus, we've been waiting to see Batman, in the Arrowverse in any way, shape, or form, and they have taken him away from us. And yet here in Titans, you get Batman. Plus, you get 2 Robins out of the whole thing.
I think didn't the one become Nightwing in the show?
Where I am right now, you got the new Robin, and you have the old Robin who hasn't yet given himself a new identity.
Okay.
So I'm sure it will happen, but it hasn't happened yet. But you will. I promise you will watch it, and you won't be sorry. It's really good.
Yeah, I really need to watch that show now while I have the chance, at least, because I have HBO Max, and all I've really been watching the last few days is Impractical Jokers.
Right. Well, you will thank me later. You will thank me later. So hey, I've got to call it a night, but thank you for just a chance for us to talk about Crisis and about I and everything else. So thank you.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been, as always.
All right. Well, I will look forward to talking to you next week.
Absolutely.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
All right.